So continuing on with the conversation of how to make the best of where you actually live and the forages that you have available to you, we've talked a lot about fescue and brome and kind of the calendar days that they offer something to us, unless we have extreme weather events where drought may play a factor into that. But let's talk a little bit about how a lot of these plants, or this fescue and Bermuda, were planted into old cropland, and there's still a lot of cropland in southeast Kansas. So how do we possibly even maybe extend that grazing season even further by the use of crop aftermath or annual forages? But also then I want to make this question a little more complicated for you. How can we use those maybe to minimize the pressure that we might have or have to use on Bermuda or fescue? I mean, how can we use that cropland to our benefit as well? And then I'll make it even a little tougher for you. How does that improve fertility on the cropland possibly as well? Who wants to take that one first?
Okay, so we'll see which sets of these questions we get answered. So one thing I think is really interesting, University of Arkansas had coined this 300 days of grazing practice, where they actually go out to producer operations and have given us a bunch of different scenarios, and averaged over a 5-year research period. They found that roughly about 60 days they are having to feed hay in all their systems. And so they've been really trying to spend a lot more time trying to bridge that gap where we don't have to feed that hay for that period. Now, Arkansas doesn't have quite as much crop ground, corn ground in particular, as we do here. And so where does corn's residue fit into a fescue system? So say you only have fescue. One of the ways you can utilize your corn stalks is go and graze the corn stalks. A lot of times we harvest 1st of September through middle of September. Get your cows out on your corn stalks then and let your fescue get that stockpiled window. Good. Get your 60 days, 90 days to let that fescue get ahead of you. And so then you can be able to efficiently use both of those. Because that's one of the downsides to guys who only have fescue. If you don't have anything else for those cows to graze for those 60 days of growth, you can't put as many acres into stockpile. So that's one way in southeast Kansas that I think we can utilize our crop residues very well. Of course, if you're also only a fescue operation and you've got crop ground, you can get your cows, whether they're spring cows or even your fall cows, and sometimes, if you can get them off of that fescue during the summer to something else, like sorghum sedans or crabgrass, something like that. And yes, I did say crabgrass on crop ground. Go ahead and hang me already, you crop producers. But crabgrass is another really good summer grazing annual forage option here in southeast Kansas. So if you're looking to pull corn out of production for a little bit, you can plant some of those others and be able to graze your cattle with it. And as many of those in the row crop industry are knowing, right now it's a little financially tough. So trying to incorporate your cattle into some cropping systems can make some economic viability for your operations. And, we typically do 3 crops in 2 years here in southeast Kansas. You go corn, wheat, and then double crop beans with a little bit of a winter fallow. We've yet to find anything to be able to follow beans with that grows as an annual forage here. But if you do the calculations and your wheat is not going to generate you a profit or you're barely breaking even, let's not forget about grazing wheat pasture with stalker calves or even your cows and be able to generate some revenue that way.
One of the things I was thinking about as Jamie Lynn was speaking is that crop residues are always going to be a fall to winter phenomenon. Thinking about animal requirements, whether we're dealing with fall calving cows or spring calving cows, can be beneficial. With respect to the fall calving cow, we can get out and use those crop residues shortly after harvest for a very limited period of time. I believe, Jamie Lynn, you said 90 days or less. Think about what's coming next. The breeding season for most of these fall cows is going to be is going to start around November 15th. And being in a position to start augmenting that nutrition, okay, as the breeding season begins, is going to pay dividends in terms of overall conception rates. Crop residues tend to be a much more natural sequelae for the spring calving cow. She's had her calf weaned by the time those crop residues are ready to graze. Her nutrient requirements are going to be very low. Her pregnancy is at a very early stage. She's not lactating anymore. They make the perfect feed for her. They don't. She doesn't need a lot in the way of protein and energy at that stage in her production cycle. We haven't brought up cover crops yet. Cover crops are another way that you can cut into your fertilizer bill on crop ground, and they make a wonderful grazing resource if thought through. As a new user of cover crops, this is something I've come to in the last 5 years from a strictly native forage grazing resource. They make a wonderful wintering system for for spring calving cows. I imagine they would do the same for fall calving cows. An additional fertility benefit that you get, other than the green manure, the plant itself, that eventually will get incorporated into the soil, is the fact that these animals are walking around using this cover crop. They're leaving behind their urine, they're leaving behind their manure, and there's a high percentage of what they consume that then gets recycled into the soil.
And to follow up on that, actually across the way on some brome grass pastures, we actually evaluated that, where we fed dry distillers grains to stalker steers during the whole summer, 5 pounds a head a day, and we were able to reduce our nitrogen by 60 pounds a year that we had to put out. Downside to that, we need to teach cattle to urinate and defecate on every square inch of the property to get a more even...
Which rotational grazing would allow you to maybe help that in somewhat.
Rotational grazing, mob grazing, all of those concentrate your excrements a little better.
I hope that answers some of your questions related to maybe using cropland also as a benefit to also the persistence of your permanent forages as well.